Okay, and a very good day to everyone, morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you might be. And welcome to this, the third day of our Regional Radio Communications Seminar for the Americas 2020. This seminar is being jointly hosted by the ITU and the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. And I'm Nigel Casimir, Telecommunications Specialist at the Caribbean Telecommunications Secretariat in Port of Spain. We are hosting the webinar on the Zoom platform today. And just before we get started, I'll share the few participation tips again. Remember, next time you log into the webinar, sign in with your information in the order of first name, last name, organization, country. So I've signed in as Nigel Casimir, CTU, TT for Trinidad and Tobago. You can use the short code, the two-letter code for your country. That is common for country code top-level domains. What that does is it makes you easily identifiable for entering this seminar and also for posing questions and for any interventions, although limited. Now, during the presentations, we ask that you post your questions in the Q&A box in order for them to be seen and efficiently addressed. And the Q&A box is accessible by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. Using the Q&A is especially important in this seminar because there will be limited opportunities for verbal interventions and we have hundreds of attendees. So please post the questions in the Q&A box, and you can post them as they occur to you during the presentations. There is also the chat button. We use the chat button for sharing general comments and information with panelists and or all attendees. I think the default setting for chat is to all panelists only, so you need to be sure to select your desired recipients when entering your comments in the chat box. The seminar presentation slides are and would be posted on the event webpage on the ITU website. And this seminar is continuing every weekday at this time during this week and next week. Today, we will be dealing with terrestrial services and in two sessions. Before the break, we'll be seeing 4 presentations related to the regulatory framework. And after the break, there will be 3 additional sessions showing or discussing publications and trends in radio technologies. As we have a lot of presentations, the intent would be to save you the answering of your questions until after the presentations, but I ask that you post the questions as they occur to you in the Q&A box, and so that we can take any opportunities in the transition between speakers to answer any urgent questions that might have arisen. So before we actually get into the presentations, I'll pass over now to Mr. Joaquin Restrepo from the Radio Communication Bureau of the ITU to give us a few comments. I think at least one based on a question that came up yesterday. So Joaquin, please.
Thank you, Nigel. Thanks again to all participants. Yes, yesterday you have asked for a list of acronyms and abbreviations because yes, we understand how so complex is this plenty of abbreviation we use, and sometimes could have some confusion. Then we are about to upload on the website. Then on the website of the event, we are going to add in the tab download resources, we are going to add a list of abbreviations. And it will be hyperlinked to a zip file. And with this zip file, you are going to find this list of abbreviation as contained on the report of conference preparatory meeting 19. But basically, this acronym have no change. And that will be 3 PDFs version in English, French, and Spanish. So in a single zip, you will find the 3 versions. because sometimes it could be also useful for you to find out what is the equivalent acronym used on the other language. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joaquin. So yes, they did ask yesterday about abbreviations, so it's good to know that you'll be posting them in the download resources section of the website. Okay, so we are going to have 4 presentations, as I said, before the break, so I think we probably need to get started. The first presenter you saw yesterday as well, Mr. Nikolai Vasiliev from the BR, and he's in the terrestrial services area, and he will get us going today with an overview of terrestrial services. So let me ask Nikolai, please, to go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Nigel, and good morning to all colleagues. Today, 2 sessions will be presented by the staff of Terrestrial Department of Radio Communication Bureau. Just quickly present us, we are 32 people, 27 nationalities, 3 divisions, broadcasting division, fixed and mobile service division, and publication and registration division. I'm chief of this department, and I will start with overview of the terrestrial service procedures and regulations. Should be coming. So terrestrial services, they include all communications used at ground, at sea, in the air, up to approximately 50 kilometers. And this high altitudes is mainly used by hub stations in the range 20 to 50 kilometers. Terrestrial services include many services like fixed, land mobile, aeronautical, broadcasting, etc. And each service, it includes in its turn applications. For example, fixed service can be used for fixed wireless access, for IMT backhauling, for distribution of television programs. I should note that ITU regulations, they apply mainly for services, not for applications, maybe with exceptions of IMT, hubs and airlines or Wi-Fi applications. There is different degree of regulations for different services. If we take maritime and aeronautical services, they are very much regulated internationally because of wide and worldwide usage of equipment throughout the globe. The services like fixed and land mobile services have very few international rules in the radio regulations. For example, for fixed service, the only provision is that in high frequency bands, double sideband modulation is not allowed because it's not efficient use of spectrum. Of course, IMT, again, IMT hubs and airlines, they're regulated very much because these are special applications inside the service. What are the regulatory instruments? There are 2 main instruments. These are radio regulations and regional agreements, like, for example, Rio de Janeiro 81 regional agreements for medium frequency and low frequency broadcasting station in your region. I think radio regulations were already explained very well by Joaquin yesterday. And the regional agreements will be presented in detail by my colleagues, Evgeny and Carlis, later on. So a part of these 2 main documents, we have other instruments like rules of procedure. They just explain some difficult provisions of radio regulations. If I take example, for example, radio regs say the station should be in conformity with table of frequency allocations and other provisions of radio regulations. And these other provisions, they are listed in the rules of procedure. The great role as regulatory mechanism is played by ITU recommendations. Some of them, they have status of international standards. For example, the description of different broadcasting standard or IMT equipment. or channel arrangement of recommendation 1036 is also very important for administrations. We have also special agreements either at regional level or between countries, but they are outside of ITU international framework. Radio regulations, two main concepts, block of frequency allocation, and each block normally accommodate services which are compatible, which can operate with each other, plus set of regulatory procedure, coordination, notification, resolving interference. In addition, radio regs have limits, which again serve for compatibility of service. For example, the protection of terrestrial communications from space transmitters is done by imposing power flux density limit on space station transmitters and vice versa. What are approaches to sharing spectrum? There are two main approaches. It's frequency coordination and frequency planning. And this explains why we have both coordination procedures in radio regulations and also frequency plans established in radio regs or in the regional agreements. Frequency coordination, normally it's just coordination of frequencies which administration would like to bring into usage. Prior to this bringing it to usage, they coordinate, for example, in border areas. The advantage that this approach is based on real frequency needs. So you need station, you go to your neighbor, you coordinate, and you bring into operation. And this results in quite flexible and efficient spectrum usage because these are frequencies which real actual frequency. The maybe disadvantage is that such principle or approach, it has notion first come first serve. And if you take, for example, the geostationary orbit, it's not terrestrial, but it's a good example. Now it's almost full. So new countries have difficulty to find new position for their satellite and new frequency resource. From this point of view, this frequency coordination may not be very equitable access to the spectrum. Frequency planning, it's just distribution frequencies between stations or between countries. And the big advantage is that the access to spectrum is equitable. So every country has its own portion in the plan and can use it. So right now or in future. But this approach have disadvantage that sometimes it's not very efficient because country can have frequency in the plan, but never use it in reality. This is unused portion of the spectrum. We have separate presentation on plans. So for your region, for region 2, there are 3 worldwide plans and 2 regional plans. It's Rio de Janeiro 81 and 88 for sound broadcasting. One of the very important elements of international regulations of spectrum is to record stations in the so-called Master International Frequency Register. This is a database worldwide, and it contains the assignments which are in operation or station in operation. It has assignments for all services, and it covers now the band between 9.8 kilohertz up to 224 gigahertz. So far, we have around 3 million terrestrial assignments recorded. We publish these assignments. It's available for you through briefing on DVD-ROM, and now we stopped it because of COVID situation. People use web applications like ISO image of this briefing. If you record the assignments in the this master registry, it gives you the right of international recognition. It means that other country has to take your assignment into account before they start to assign in their own frequency. This master registry is useful in case of interference. It can help to identify the source of interference. Some countries use the information in the master register for objections or for coordination activities. And of course, each conference look at the master register to understand how the specific band, which is discussed at conference, is used and with what characteristics. So notification to the master register is very essential, and I would say that we have a real example which prove that the practical usage of notification in the master register. Not a long time ago, we have the case, for example, one country installed Earth station at the border, and they start to experience interference from fixed stations of neighboring country. They complained to this interference. We analyzed situation and appeared this Earth station was not recorded, but on the contrary, the fixed station of neighbors were recorded, and the legal reply from ITU was, sorry, you don't have much right for complaint because your station is not recorded in the master register. Sometimes another example of usage is we have sometimes requests how to assign frequency in high frequency band for links between embassies or other links. And we always give two advices. First advice is please listen to this band, trying to find free frequency, and secondly, look at the master register and try to again identify the frequency band or channels which are not very much used in this region. So the more correctly and fully country notify in the master register, the more efficiently they can use it for their own assignment purposes. There are other examples, and one of very, how to say, strong example I remember in 2004 when the conference which were planning television in region 1, they decided all assignments which are already recorded in the master register, they have right for protection, but not recorded. Even if they are in use, they have to be coordinated again with all neighbors. So more than 1,500 assignments or stations had to be recoordinated, and it took enormous time for administration to do this. And several conferences, they used information in the master register for decision taking on specific band to understand how intensively this band is used. So a part of this coordination notification activities, the Radio Communication Bureau or Terrestrial Department, we have another tasks and work to be done. We publish lists of coast stations and ship stations, and we maintain maritime access and retrieval database. This serves maritime community with necessary information. We allocate the means of identification like call sign series or MMSI, so-called MID. This is maritime identificator, which later on assigned to ships or to other stations. We organize radio monitoring program in high frequency band because there are some safety of life services operating, and in the band 406 megahertz used by COSPAS SARSAT safety of life maritime system. And we publish the summaries of this monitoring results. They are open for everybody. We maintain some other database like database on emergency disaster relief communications or database on the oceanographic radars. Again, this is available on our website for all administration concerned. And one of the main tasks is to assist countries, assist administration in different activities in application of procedures of the radio regulations, regional agreements, in training, in software, which we have, in resolving cases of harmful interference and infringements when countries send us interference report or infringement report, in transition to digital television and allocation of digital dividend. And here I should mention the activity which we undertook in 2018 when we helped Caribbean countries and countries of Central America to plan their future television requirements. Also, we assist in multilateral coordination meetings, especially when countries have difficult relationship between themselves. We act as intermediator for this kind, and we also, of course, give technical assistance because we have technical knowledge and software to help administration to coordinate. And we provide best practices on spectrum usage. My final slide is that radio regulations and regional agreements, they mandate the Radio Communication Bureau to maintain some databases. There are two types databases. First, which contains assignments, frequency stations, which can be used for compatibility analysis, for interference analysis, and these are master register and plans. We also develop many tools to update this database. Administration send us notices and to access information. It could be dedicated tools like terrestrial or web tools like, for example, EBCD for broadcasting. And we have so-called administrative database, which do not have technical characteristics used for interference analysis, but more administrative data like Mars database, what are ships and coast stations are in the world, or GLAD, Global Administrative Database, what are countries, what their means identifications, geographical areas, etc. So all these databases can be accessed by web tools or by dedicated tools. This is short overview of terrestrial services, and I would like to pass the floor to my colleague from Broadcasting Division, Evgeny Shestakov. He will present the plans, frequency plans existing for broadcasting services. Nigel, I don't know if there are questions which should be answered now.
You need to stop share so that Evgeny can get in. And then there is a question about the MIFR. One, where is it physically located and how can we access it remotely?
MIFR or master register, it's physically located in the ITU on one of ITU servers. The database accessible in several ways. The first way, it's so-called VR information frequency, International Frequency Information Circular. It's called BRIFIC. It's distributed to administration on DVD-ROMs once per 2 weeks. And also now, unfortunately, we have to suspend the distribution of DVD because of COVID situation and postal services not operating in all countries. There is so-called ISO image on the web. This is exactly a copy of BRIFIC information and information about the master register. In addition, we have so-called MIFR. MIFR, it's electronic master register. This is accessible through website for users which have TIES account. I will send the link. Maybe we can place this link somewhere visible for you that people can access master register.
Yeah, yes, you can post it in the chat to all panelists and attendees. There will also be a presentation after the break on the BRFIC, so that'll provide some more information for the questioner. Okay, so Evgeny, you can go ahead now with your...
Yes, thank you, Nigel. Good morning to everyone and good afternoon for someone. Yes. Because here we have in Geneva, we have already afternoon. So my presentation will cover frequency plan for broadcasting services and also Central America and the Caribbean multilateral agreement. This is quick overview about the regions you were told yesterday. And let's start from low and medium frequency bands. As you can see, in all regions, these bands are distributed in a different manner. Sometimes they coincide, sometimes they not. And also, in some cases, these frequency bands are covered by some plans and sometimes not. For example, if you look for frequency band 148.5 up to 283.5, it's allocated only for region 1, and it's covered by regional agreement. For example, if you look on frequency band 525, 526.5, it's allocated only in region 2. But what is interesting, this frequency band is not subject to any plan, and this is some kind of what we call non-planned band. But also, as Nikolai already said, in radio regulation for this band 525, 535, there is a condition of usage of this band. So you cannot use, according to footnote 5.86, you cannot use the stations with power of more than 1 kilowatt at the daytime and more than 250 watts during the night. So that's why there are a lot of provisions which also regulate the usage of these bands. And also, if the band is covered by the agreement, in agreement itself, there are some administrative procedures plus attached plan for this frequency band. So if we look on VHF bands, so there are only plans for region 1. Frankly saying so, I would say that the region 1 has 5 regional plans in different bands. Region 2 has only 2, and the region 3, it's only 1 plan, but it's combined with region 1 plan. So what is interesting for you in this, if you look on region 2, you see that there are some bands allocated to broadcasting, but there are no plans. So that means that in these bands, you can submit notices to broadcasting notices to MIFR directly under Article 11, and they will be examined only on the conformity on table of frequency allocation. If your assignment fits into the frequency band allocated to broadcasting, so it will go to the master register. That's it, no more examination is done. But if this band is covered by agreement, by regional agreement, additional examination will be done on the conformity to relevant agreement. So this is specifically for the plans. And for UHF band, you have also this interesting picture. Just for region 2, you see that there are two frequency bands which are allocated to broadcasting, but once again, they are not covered by any regional agreement at the ITU level, as was mentioned by Nikolai. So this is just a summary of broadcasting plans, what we have for the time being. And you see for different frequency bands, for different regions, and also for broadcasting sound, DC, or broadcasting television, or they may cover both television and sound. So it's, see, all the detailed information is here. So regional agreements, they are done for specific frequency bands, specific region or area, and specific services. And regional plans, regional agreements, they are adopted by regional radio communication conferences. And the rules how to convene this conference are covered by constitution and convention. So that means not just I want to convene a conference. No, 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 it's not so simple, but at least it gives some priority to these conferences. And also, if you at the end of the conference, after the signing the final acts, if you want to change something in the agreement, you cannot do this except convening another competent conference. And this is a big difference because, for example, World Radio Communication Conference has no competence to change anything which was adopted by Regional Radio Communication Conference. So that's why you have, for example, RJ81 plan. It was not changed since 1981 because there were no any competent conferences convened just to revise this RG81 agreement. To my memory, only 2 agreements were revised since 1961. It was Stockholm 61 revised in 1985 as a consequence of establishment of the Geneva 84 agreement. And the second time it was revised during the Regional Radio Conference 2006, when the GO6 agreement was established. And the second plan is Geneva 89. It was revised only once in parallel, as I said, with Geneva 06. So you see, it's quite stable basis. So why we need these broadcasting plans? As Nikolai already said, it gives efficiency and also equity. So that means that during the producing of the plan, each administration come to this conference, regional conference, with their own requirements, and they are considered at the same time, at the same place, and there is no priority. So that means everyone is equal. In this case, you can get the efficient plan, but also it may happen that in some cases, what you agreed at the conference may never be put into operation. It's another story, but this is, you see, this is a plus and minuses of this planning. But at least for the well-developed countries, for example, as Nikolai already told it, it's might be principle like first come, first serve. But for countries with less developed economical level, at least they can secure some spectrum for their future development. So you see, that's why there are both sides of one coin. And if you look for the basis of broadcasting plans, as I said, first of all, radio communication conference, and each radio conference has 2 sessions. First session adopts a technical report, which is submitted to the second session. The second session, on the basis of this report, designs the plan and also develops administrative procedure to be put in the agreement. And the plan is attached, one plan or several plans is attached to this agreement. For sure, it does not mean that you cannot change anything. So each agreement contains an article, which is normally Article 4 for all agreements. It says, okay, if an administration wants to add a new assignment or allotment, it depends on the plan, or modify something in already recorded allotment or assignment, or to suppress a assignment or allotment, please apply procedure of Article 4. So this is, in this case, you see what comes after the establishment of the plan by the conference. That means that what is already recorded in the plan has some priority with respect to the newcomers. And also, this Article 4 establishes a mechanism for identification of affected administration. It depends once again on agreement, but it may be different methods like distance to the nearest boundary from your proposed station, or potential interference to assignments, allotments already recorded in the plan, or field strengths at the border. And as I said already, there are 2 types of broadcasting plans. Assignment plans, which is quite simple, saying, okay, I have recorded in the plan my station at this place, with this power, with this antenna diagram, with this antenna height, with this polarization. So all the detailed information is here. That means this is assignment plan. But also there are allotment plans. That means you have some area, and to this area, a channel is assigned. But also what is important to stress, the allotment plans and the agreements contain also a procedure how to convert this allotment into assignment, because when you go to the master register, you go with real stations. So you need to provide real stations like in the assignment plan, but in this case, you have the right to use this channel over some allotment area, but you need to put specific stations within this allotment area or with some tolerance with specific coordinates. And they must be within the allotment potential agreed. So this is the peculiarity of this allotment plan. And you see just all the agreements, and you have some of them, for example, Rio de Janeiro 81 contains only assignments, but Rio de Janeiro 88 contains only allotments. But there is also GO6 plan for region 1. It contains assignments and allotments. It depends on how administrations agree to plan this frequency bands. As I said, Article 4, plan modification procedure, notifying administration submits notice, modifying the plan. And for sure, if it's just suppression, you don't need to go to ask your neighbor saying, okay, you agree if I remove my record? It's nothing, it's just published in Part C, and that's it. But for remaining part, if you want to add something or modify, for example, increase the power or to relocate your station from the position which is currently recorded in the master register or in the plan, or to change a frequency, everything it falls under the modification of the plan. Then, when you submit the notice, BR identifies potential affected administrations using the method which is described in the relevant agreement. Then BR publishes this information in Part A together with the names of the affected administrations. And then, starting from this date of publication, very important, affected administrations need to send their comments. And you see for different plans, this comment period is different. And for sure, they can provide their comments saying, okay, I agree, or I don't agree, or if they keep silence, in case of no comment, you see it will be treated as an agreement for almost all plans except GO6. For GO6, it's clearly stated in the agreement that if you keep silence for 75 days, it means a disagreement. So that's why you need to stick to these days. For example, if for Rio de Janeiro, we have 60 days for comments, and you provided your comment reached the BR on 61st day, to say, sorry, this period of 60 days is expired. Your objection cannot be taken into account. But you see, you need to respect this. This is, and we are following the provisions of the respective agreement. So also there is a so-called quick plan modification procedure, but it depends once again on the agreement itself. Because, for example, for sure you have 100 kilowatts station recorded in the plan, and you say, okay, I don't need these 100 kilowatts. Maybe I will go with one kilowatt. Why not? No one can object, but at least for you, it's you don't need to coordinate. You just submit to BR, and it will be done under the same preview as you have recorded. But also, if you have a distance to border greater than coordination distance, also you don't need to coordinate. And you see, as I said, suppression, you don't need to ask anyone if you want to suppress your own assignment. But in this case, be careful, because, for example, you have something recorded in the plan and you decided to suppress it, and then say, whoa, one day, I did something wrong. I want to reestablish my suppressed record. In this case, you must go through the Article 4 procedure once again. And there is no 100% guarantee that you will get in once again. So in this case, be careful with suppressions. So Part B publication. it's not automatically done. You need to request BR. After this period, from the date of publication in Part A, if you don't notify these assignments, which already published in Part A, to BR, asking BR to publish them in Part B, you see that after this period, all of them will be removed. For all plans except Geneva 89 and Geneva 6, these dates were established in the rules of procedure. That's what was said by Nikolai just a few minutes ago. But for Geneva 6, it is included in the agreement itself. So that's why we sometimes we suggest to administrations before going and submitting to BR your broadcasting assignments, try to identify the affected administrations, try to make a preliminary coordination. Then, if you already agree, you can put this agreed administration in court section of your notice, and then when this notice comes, at least you are more or less secured that, okay, this station will go to Part B. But if not, for example, for Rio de Janeiro plan, in 180 days, it may be just you cannot reach all the agreements necessary, or you just forgot about this. So in this case, also be careful and follow this. But if 180 days is exceeded, so you need to start Article 4 procedure once again from the scratch. So notification to the master register. The very end of this planning is really to put station into operation and to protect it. It means you need to protect your real investment. In this case, when you decide to bring into use your assignment, you shall notify to the master register in accordance with provision of Article 11 of the radio regulations. Here we are talking about, on one hand, we are talking about plans, but on second, on the other hand, we are talking about Article 11. What is the link? But the link is article, which is in each agreement. It says Article 555, almost 5 except one agreement. But all of these agreements may contain only one paragraph, like I shown on the screen, but maybe slightly different wording, but the sense is the same. When you are going to put something real in operation, what you have in the plan, as I say, this is your right to put into operation. But this is Article 11, these are real stations. And then you need to notify the real stations with real parameters, and we check, when you submit this to the BR, we check, as I said, if it's land band, if it's subject to an agreement, we are looking on the agreement and see what are the parameters recorded in the plan and what you submitted to the master register. And if you submit it to the master register with some higher parameters, which was in comparison with those recorded in the plan, it will be rejected and it will be proposed to you to launch the Article 4 procedure to get to this modification first in the plan, and the second step to put it into operation. But at least it's your final step, as I said, is to be protected, and to be protected from real interference. Real interference appears when you put station in operation. When you are doing the coordination of the plan, you are doing calculations, I would say, and this is like a paper interference, potential interference, but real interference appears when you put station into operation. So, as Nikolai already mentioned, there is another type of agreements, special agreements, or so-called multilateral agreements. They are not subject to Constitution Convention, but still they are within the framework of Article 6 of the radio regulations. And one of these examples is this Central American DTT multilateral agreement. So the country decides in this region, they decided to move to digital terrestrial television, and they want to use this opportunity to get the digital dividend. And so they wanted to have this some kind of coordination meetings, and also the BR was asked to provide assistance to this activity. And if you look on this, so it was done for the for 30 administrations included in this regional coordination, and 41 geographical area were involved. So the purpose of these meetings was really to, as I said, to facilitate the process of transition from analog to digital, because, for example, for Geo-6 agreement, it was established in the agreement that, okay, during the transition period from analog to digital, the analog stations are protected by default. After the transition period, and these stations will be no protection afforded to these stations. But agreement also, Geo-6 agreement also contains a fixed date. The last date was 17th June 2020. So no more, after that date, no more analog stations are protected. It was an exception up to this date, just for a few countries, and only in VHF band. But for this region, there is no such agreement. So some countries already completed digital transition, some countries not, some countries in transition. So that's why it was also important to keep in mind that still it may happen that countries will ask to protect their existing analog stations for some time, not defined yet, and it will be defined by each country. Also, the purpose of this frequent coordination meeting was really not to conclude any formal agreement, but just to build a formal consensus, and just to move forward to implementing the digital terrestrial television. So in total, there were 4 meetings held. First one was in Managua in March 2017. The last one was in September 2019 in Belize City. And technical basis, as we said, this was based on recommendations and report and some contributions from the BR side. These contributions before submission them to Working Party 6A for confirmation or consideration confirmation were discussed and approved by administration, by participating administrations, and they were later on endorsed by the Working Party 6A. And at the end, all of these technical assumptions were included in the ITUR report 2432. The report, the meetings, the last meeting, as I said, it was in September 2018, but the final report BT 2432 was approved in October 2018. So just next month after the completion of this task. Also, you see, we're talking about the equity. You see 1 layer in VHF and 4 layers for 6 MHz raster, or 3 layers for 8 MHz raster in UHF band for board and difficult areas. As previously was shown in the picture, you have a lot of C paths, and this is warm C, so it's very good media for propagation of interference. In this case, everything should be taken into account. As I said, analog and digital assignments, and also assignments for our primary services, which were recorded in the master register or published in part 1 of the briefing, were taken into consideration. And also one interesting and important point, at some point, the participating administrations agreed to freeze, not to submit anything until the end of coordination meeting, just to build stable stable digital terrestrial television reference list, which includes channels which can be used by countries. In this case, if we don't freeze this basis, it will be not possible to reach the result. So, okay, so the coordination process was done by the administrations with the assistance of the BR. Every 2 weeks we had the iteration, and that means that each administration submitted to BR their requirements. We put this in the system. If the system was running the compatibility calculations, after the end of calculations, they were published on our website. Administrations downloaded the results. They checked what are the results, do they need some adjustments, and so on and so on. They did some adjustments. They submitted once again, and this was round and round and round. In total, 27 iterations were done for VHF band and 40 iterations were done for UHF band. So at the end, it was a digital terrestrial television list established. And then when you are going to put something in operation from this list, you can notify to the BR. So this is the result. And you see here 96.1% of satisfied requirements. So that means for 96.1%, the channels were agreed between administrations, and 94.4% in UHF channels were agreed by administrations. As I said, it was 18 months duration of the whole period, and also the administrations felt that this is an important thing and should be used for the future. Yes, and that's why the multiple agreement has been concluded with DTT reference frequency list. And those are principles what should be included in the reference list. And this is also important because for future actions, administrations were invited to ensure the compatibility with DTT list. And then before notifying any new or additional frequency channel not included in the list, the compatibility calculations must be done. And when you submit, just keep in mind that when you submit something covered by this agreement to the BR, they are in conformity with outcome of the third meeting, which was held in Panama, was asked to suspend any further processing if this submission does not comply with the principle above. And in this case, we were asked to notify to regional organizations, to notifying administration, to affected administration about the situation. So that's it. What I would suggest you, just if you wish, I could give you, clicking on this link, I will bring you to the web page with all these, when you can find this, all these agreements. The agreements is here, a reference lists in Excel format, and also in the final agreement, we just included as annexes. And also with outcome of, you have the software here, description, you have every meeting, and as I just said, outcome of the third meeting contains this paragraph. You see, is requested to delay the processing and notification to remind, and so this is important just to keep in mind for your future submission. So that's it. That completes my presentation. If there are any questions, please go ahead. Thank you.
I'll hand over, I guess Nikolai could introduce our next speaker, but while he does that, or just before, just one clarification, Evgeny. We're asking if, maybe if you could clarify again the purpose of the regional frequency coordination meetings.
So, yeah. Okay, let me check. Yes, we're here. Yes, yeah, the idea was, you know, if you go, for example, if you are launching the analog station, okay, for your viewers, it may be, okay, fine picture, okay, if there is some interference, okay, not fine, and it goes down more or less gradually. But if you launch the digital television, digital signal, either it's fine or you have nothing. In this case, you are pushed to get in touch with your neighbors, trying to coordinate and to know what he is doing at the same time. You need to provide him information what you are going to do. In this case, you need the close collaboration in order to both to protect your own investments in broadcasting infrastructure. Mm-hmm. This is important, and this is really very big difference between analog situation and digital one. So it's not only about just the digital dividend. Okay, I want to use the 700 megahertz for INT or other services, but also to keep your DTT stations running smoothly.
Right. So essentially, it's because in the digital world, you have kind of yes or no situations as to whether it works or it doesn't. Whereas in the analog world, you could get gradually degraded quality. In the digital world, it could be a situation where either you have service or you don't. So
yes, you're perfectly right. Yes.
So it is more important then that you coordinate with your neighbors.
Yeah, and also, you know, because as I said, you have, for example, islands, and there is sea pass and warm sea. It may happen that it's not your adjacent neighbor is producing this interference. It may be very far away.
Yes.
So in this case, you cannot say, okay, my neighbor, just don't use this channel. Okay, that's fine. No, maybe someone who is 500 or 600 or 800 away.
Yes.
This is a tricky thing, but it needs to be taken into account.
All right, thanks. There's another question which we'll hold for the end. So maybe I'll save a couple seconds by just asking the next speaker to please take the floor. This would be Carlos, talking about frequency plans for non-broadcasting services. I don't know if Nikolai wants to make any further introduction.
This is okay. Carlos is the head of Fixed and Mobile Service Division, and he will present plans for non-broadcasting services. I also see two other questions on the question and answer page. I think we will reply in written form. Thank you, Nigel.
Okay, thanks. We can see Carlos.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So can you see my slides? Can you see the first slide? Okay. This presentation will be on frequency plans as well as coordination and examination procedures applicable to all terrestrial non-broadcasting services. So the scope of terrestrial services other than broadcasting covers radio communication services such as fixed service, 3 types of mobile services, radio navigation services, and other services shown on this slide. In BR, we designate them with abbreviation FXM, meaning fixed and mobile. The international regulations for these FXM services depend on the type of frequency band. Conditionally, we can subdivide all of frequency bands into 3 categories: planned bands, shared bands, and other bands. In my presentation, I will talk about the frequency allotment, assignment plans, coordination, and examination of these FXM assignments. So let's start with the first part that is related to frequency bands governed by frequency allotment or assignment plans. It is important to indicate that in allotment plan, a frequency is not distributed to specific plan is not distributed to specific station, but to geographical area or to country. So it allows to reuse the same frequency by other allotment areas in the plan, subject to enough distance separation according to the technical criteria of the particular plan. And then the frequency assignment plan authorizes the use of a frequency to the specified station based on the technical criteria of a particular plan. There are 3 worldwide frequency allotment plans that are contained in Appendixes 25, 26, 27, and 1 frequency allotment plan for digital selective calling for region 1. So I will briefly describe the 3 allotment plans. The frequency plan of Appendix 25 covers radio telephone channels in the HF exclusive maritime bands between 4 and 27 megahertz, intended for duplex operation. It contains 240 channels and several allotment areas equal to countries, except some big countries, as for example, Argentina or USA. There are others which are subdivided into several allotment areas. As you can see on this slide, this is example of Argentina, which is subdivided into 3 sub-areas: Argentina North, Central, and South. And channel 2245 is allotted to Argentina Central and Argentina South. This plan also contains a number of restricted allotments, meaning that these allotments have limitations on service areas or some technical characteristics. The plan is based on 3 kilohertz channel spacing. This is separation between 2 adjacent reference frequencies. Only 1 bandwidth is allowed in this plan. It's 2.8 kilohertz. This plan is for single band radio telephony or digital emissions that are J2D. So classes of emission J3E or J2D. The plan has limitation on the power for coast station, which is equal to 10 kilowatts or 40 decibel watts. So now we come to worldwide plans for aeronautical mobile service. There are 2 types of aeronautical mobile services, route and off-route. Route service is used for civil aviation, and off-route service is used for touristic, agriculture, and also for defense aviation. The first plan is worldwide allotment plan for aeronautical off-route service, contained in Appendix 26. It covers 10 subbands in the frequency bands between 3 and 18 megahertz. Allotment areas in this plan are equal to countries. This plan is based on maximum bandwidth, 2.8 kilohertz. These bands can be used for radio telephone and radio telegraph communications. The allowed classes of emission are listed on this slide. There are also limitations on radiated power, which is equal to 1 kilowatt for aeronautical stations and 50 watts for aircraft stations. Another plan for aeronautical services is contained in Appendix 27, that is worldwide plan for civil aviation in the bands between 2.8 and 22 megahertz. Differently from other plans, the allotment areas in Appendix 27 are not countries, but special areas, as for example, major world air route areas, regional or domestic air route areas. This plan is also for radio telephony, communications, and other type of communications, with examples of emissions and technical characteristics shown on this slide. And another difference of this plan is that it has no coordination procedure. So there is no possibility to add new allotment to this plan. But if an administration notifies new station in this band, the Bureau makes compatibility checks with respect to existing plan allotments. So there are ongoing studies under agenda item 1.9 of WRC 23 on replanning of Appendix 27. So it's going under modernization. The purpose of the replanning is to take advantage of the various benefits that modern wideband HF communications could offer, as for example, faster data rates, better voice communications, and so on. And of course, for the planning, it's also very important to ensure compatibility with existing systems operating within these frequency bands. So this slide just briefly shows all of assignment plans. I'm not going into details since all of them are related to region 1. And this table summarizes all of plans for FXM services, which we already discussed. So there is another plan. In addition, there is a mandatory channeling arrangement for maritime mobile service in the bands between 4 and 27 megahertz. This plan defines channels to be used by ship stations and coast stations, as for example, for duplex radio telephony, narrowband direct printing telegraphy systems. This plan has been revised by 2 conferences. WRC 12 designated several bands for data transmission, so in digital format, and also WRC 19 implemented some channels for navigational data for broadcasting maritime safety and security related information, so-called NAVDAT. So this slide shows a graphical presentation of Appendix 17. As you can see, the large boxes with number 3 were allocated by WRC for digital data transmission. So HF is relevant and new technologies come into market, and so this is also the task, is to find resource for these new technologies, and also especially for the maritime, because it's now going GMDSS modernization process, and there are new technologies which for which additional frequencies should be accommodated. So now let's move to the coordination. The coordination is important in the process of implementation of new radio communication systems in order to avoid harmful interference with existing and planned radio stations and other administrations. From regulatory point of view, there are 2 types of coordination between administrations, so mandatory and voluntary. So mandatory coordination applies to the assignments of terrestrial services in the frequency bands shared with space services under provisions 916, 918, and 919. The coordination is also mandatory for those terrestrial services which are indicated in Article 5 footnotes with reference to provision 921. The frequency assignments to be taken into account for coordination under this Article 9 provisions are identified according to the principles of Appendix 5 to the radio regulations. Coordination is also mandatory for stations of non-planned terrestrial services operating in the bands under regional agreements. And voluntary coordination is direct coordination between administrations concerned without involvement of Radio Communication Bureau, as for example, coordination of land mobile service networks in border areas. This slide shows diagrams of different mandatory coordination cases under Article 9. The first is related to 921, that is mandatory for those terrestrial services which are indicated in Article 5 footnotes with reference to 921. The next diagram shows 2 mandatory coordination cases such as 916 and 918 that apply to terrestrial transmitting stations within the coordination area of receiving Earth station. And the final drawing is related to provisions 919 that applies to any terrestrial transmitting station in a frequency band shared on equal primary basis with the broadcasting satellite service. So that's briefly all about coordination. So now we move to examination. So after notice is published in part 1, so there are the following steps that apply to the notified assignment, and depending on the frequency band and service, it may include regulatory, coordination, conformity with plan, and technical examination. If the examination results are favorable, the assignment is recorded in the master register after its publication in part 2. If examination results are unfavorable, the notice is returned with indication of appropriate action to the notifying administration after it is published in part 3. So this slide shows some more details related to the regulatory examination. The first step is examination of conformity with Article 5, frequency allocation table. It includes the examination of assigned frequency, whether it is within the band which is allocated to the service. It also includes check of the notified bandwidth, whether it is within the frequency band allocated to the service. The next steps of the regulatory examination are checks with respect to other requirements specified in radio regulations, as for example, classes of emission, channeling arrangements, power limits, as well as exams with respect to the conditions associated with particular services if provision 921 applies. So there are several bands, for instance, that are identified to IMT stations subject to 921. So this diagram illustrates the relation between radio services and classes of stations, as it is important for notification to identify the correct class of station for a service. As you can see, the classes of station are grouped into two categories: classes of transmitting station and classes of receiving station. As for example, land mobile service has transmitting class of station FB and receiving class of station ML, and so on. Also, this slide shows an example on the frequency allocation table. The frequency band, this particular frequency band is allocated to the fixed and land mobile services. So in this case, only class of station FX for the fixed service and classes of station FB, ML for the land mobile service can be notified in this frequency band. As indicated before, the regulatory examination also includes the verification of notified power values with respect to power limits of Article 21. So these power limits are shown on this slide, and I'm not going into more details on this. So let's move on to the next type of examination, which is a coordination examination. This slide shows 4 cases where the coordination examination applies. As we considered already before, the provisions 916, 918, and 919 apply in shared bands with respect to satellite services, and 921 applies if the obligation is to effect coordination is indicated in the footnote of frequency allocation table. And there is also for regional plans. So now I would like to show you some more details related to the coordination in shared bands. There are more than 60 frequency bands above 100 megahertz allocated with equal rights to terrestrial and space services. In order to ensure protection of receiving earth stations and BSS, typical receiving from terrestrial transmittings in downlink directions, the coordination examination is required in these bands. So this slide shows an example of examination with respect to receiving earth stations. The coordination area of the earth station is determined by using the calculation method contained in Appendix 7. assuming that there is frequency envelope or the coordination of this terrestrial station is required because the terrestrial transmitting station of administration B is located within the coordination area of Earth station of administration A. The next type of examination is conformity with plan examination, which applies only to assignments in bands covered by worldwide plans and by regional plans, as I showed in the beginning of my presentation. So for worldwide plans, the examination includes the following checks. Is the notified frequency is covered by a allotted channel listed in appropriate plan? Does the geographical area of the administration correspond to the plan allotment? Is the receiving area is within the allotment area? So finally, the technical examination applies only to appendixes 26, 27. So if a notice is conformity with technical principles allotment plan, but not in conformity with allotment plan, the compatibility analysis are performed at this examination stage vis-a-vis existing assignments recorded with favorable findings. So this slide finally provides you with a summary of provisions of the radio regulations that are related to the use of assignment to terrestrial services. And so I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Carlos. I think that is a lot of data you went through there in a very short time. I think we'll have to absorb it and maybe come back a little later. I'm watching the time and we have limited time, so I'll ask Nikolai to go on and introduce the final speaker, Saman.
Thank you, Nigel. The next speaker is will be Saman Jalarian from Terrestrial Registration and Publication Division. He is the head of section responsible for publication of briefing. And I would like to ask Saman to keep presentation quite short because the remaining time is only 12 minutes. So I think if you don't have time to tell us all information, you will have this possibility during later sessions when you will speak about the same subjects. Thank you very much in advance.
Okay, hello, good morning, good afternoon.
Yes, good day.
Everybody. Yeah, so I'm going to share. Yes, I'm lucky that most of my presentation is already given by previous speakers, so I will just quickly go through it. And the subject is about notification of frequency assignments. Of course, for terrestrial services, we are talking. We have two types of notifications. One is notification in order to update the master register. The complete name is Master International Frequency Register, that we call it MIFR. You have already heard this abbreviation several times. The other type of notification is to update a plan, a regional plan, so which all the details are already provided by Evgeny, the previous speaker. So for all these things, we have different tools and to assist administrations to process, create, validate, and submit notifications. So we will see during this session and the next session after the break. And also we have Friday to go into more details on all these tools. Okay, so one of the main reasons that we want to notify our assignments is to have the international recognition, as was explained by Nikolai in the beginning of this session. It helps us, it helps the administrations later to protect their assignments and to avoid harmful interferences caused to their assignments. So there are some frequencies that we should notify, and there are some assignment frequencies that we should not notify. These are explained in Article 11 of the radio regulations. Numbers 11.3 to 11.9 show those assigned frequencies that should be notified. And there are two other items after that, 11.13 and 11.14, which explain those which should not be notified to the Bureau. Okay, then what to notify? There are, for each type of a station, each type of service, we have a list of data items which should be notified. They are all explained in Appendix 4 of the radio regulation, to the radio regulations. And of course, with a tool that the Bureau has provided to administrations, all these checks are done in order to make sure that the necessary and mandatory fields are already provided. So all this information are explained in this web page, which is shown on the page, on this screen. Then there's a time when to notify. Normally, the frequency assignments should be notified after they are brought into use. But of course, there are three cases that we can submit notifications a little bit before. But of course, the Bureau will ask for confirmation from administrations to make sure that they are brought into use. Then, okay, I will skip these pages. Yeah, this one is in this page, we explain that for each frequency for each station, we need to create one notice file. But there are exceptions that we can group some of these frequencies in one file. I will show later how they are grouped. So there are different notice types for each station type, for each frequency band. So you see that, for example, in this slide, we have grouped the notices in three groups. First group is LFM, we call it LFMF, low frequency and medium frequency bands. Second one is FMTV, which is for sound and television broadcasting assignments for VHF and UHF bands. And the last one is FXM. And those red codes are the codes that we use for notices, but these are limited for notices which are applicable for region 2. The list is much longer. Okay, so electronic notice format. It's a text file that we receive, of course. And in that file, there's a special format. It should have a head section, a body section, which can be much longer than this. Later, we will see the examples of this on Friday. And it can have several notice bodies. And at the end, we have to have a tail section to close the file. Then in this page, you can, this page in the ITU website, you can find more detailed information about this. Then on Friday, we will see a tool called Terra Notices. With this tool, we can create notices and we can validate it and we can prepare a notice to be sent to the Bureau. Then on Friday, we can see, of course, online validation tool, which performs a much deeper and more precise type of validation before notice is being able to send the notice to the Bureau. Then, of course, we will see VISFAT, which is a specific website for administrations to submit their notices. Okay, this flow of information is already explained by previous speakers, how we start from a notice and when we reach to part 2, which is to enter in the master register when everything is okay. And if there is any problem in the examination part, either regulatory or conformity with plan or technically, then it may go to part 3. Then, okay, as a final remark, with all these benefits that have been provided to you, shown to you since beginning of this session, we encourage you to notify your frequency assignments to preserve the rights of your administration. Thank you very much.
I have a question for you from St. Vincent. Saman?
Yes?
Slide, yes, referring to your slide on what not to notify.
Yes.
It said that you shall not notify assignments to mobile stations of other services. What is meant by other services?
I'm going to, of course, I have not copied the whole item from the radio regulations, but as a reference, you can go to that thing. So I'm going to now show, probably Carl can provide more information on that, but I will show you the item.
Yes.
And then, yes, if I can share again, this one.
When someone is looking for
Yeah,
he found it. Okay.
In fact, this is the item which
1114.
Yes.
And it says frequency assignments to ship stations. And well, you go ahead.
So the answer is that the assignments to ship stations and to other mobile stations shall be not notified individually. So for example, each smartphone is considered as a mobile station. So, and it's not unrealistic to notify a billion of smartphones which are operating in the world. And there is no purpose because they're moving, it's difficult to estimate interference from these stations. So they notified in a little bit indirect manner, so like receiving base station which receives signals from these all terminals, and these terminals operate in specific service area. So, but this provision said that there should not be individual notification of every ship, every aircraft, every smartphone, etc.
Right. Okay, I think I get the gist of that. There was another question, it might have been answered by text. There might have been a written answer to the question. There was an earlier question about interference on another band. I think it was a broadcasting related question. Yes.
There were two other questions, Nigel, maybe very quickly.
Yes.
The first question was about mega constellations of non-geostationary satellite, because now we have notifications up to 10,000 of a network with 10,000 satellites, non-geostationary satellite. The question was how this big number of satellites can create interference to terrestrial services. And the response was that so far, the protection of terrestrial was calculated based on constellation up to 200, 300 satellites for network. But when it goes to 10,000, the aggregate interference can be so big that can impact terrestrial.
Yes.
So theoretically, it's possible that with bringing into use many non-geo, there will be some more interference on terrestrial thing. The question remains if it's realistic to launch all these satellites because of competition, because you saw some companies run bankruptcy, so we expect that, let's say, real number of satellites will be manageable, and it will maybe not so big impact on the services.
Okay.
The second was, sorry?
Evgeny, you wanted to say something?
Yes, there is another question concerning this frequency band 1605, 1705. With respect to this broadcasting service in region 2 mentioned in footnote 589. The footnote 589 talks about that this band is subject to regional agreement Rio 88. Looking on the article 14 of the agreement, it says, this agreement can be revised only by a competent regional administrative conference. So that means that to revise this agreement, you need to convene another conference.
Right.
And this is should be done by the request of administration. It's not saying so, should be initiative from the ITU side, first one. And second one, with respect with new means, my understanding is that it relates to introduction of the digital modulation. In this case, I would like to draw attention that it was a special study made by the ITU in 2002, and it was reflected in circular letter CCRR 20. And it was mentioned that under RG 88, it's possible to introduce a digital modulation. So that's why I will reply to this participant. I will give him this link to this circular letter, just to him if he needs more details on this issue.
Right. Okay, you could also put it in the chat.
Yeah, because I'm trying to reply, but yeah, I'm fighting with this stuff. Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right.
Just to add, Nigel, that the second part of this question asks if the band is will be considered at next World Radio Communication Conference, and the answer is no. It will not be considered at the next conference.
All right, thank you. I think we'll take our break now. I think we've earned a break. We'll take a break and we will resume at 10:45. That is in about 13 minutes from now. So you get a little, almost a 15-minute break. And we'll resume back with the presentation on the BRFIC, I believe. All right, so let's take a break now and for your comfort. All right, we'll be back shortly.
To act accordingly. So this flow of information you have already seen, it's not something new. So the first one, which is in the top, is concerning update of the master register, which starts from a notification, your side and the side of administration, and it passes through several tools in the BR, in the ITU, to either to be able to enter in the master register, or in case of unfavorable findings formulated here after examinations, they are returned to administrations. They are published in part 3. The second one is concerning plans. So for each plan, as was explained by Evgeny, so there are a different way of exams and publication in parts, but the flow is almost the same for all of them. So now we go to details of these parts, because you will hear on Friday a lot of references to this part 1, part 2, part 3. You might be already familiar with these names, but just to repeat, part 1 of the briefing, which was here, I mean, when we receive a notice, we validate it and we publish it in part 1. So when you see your notice in part 1 of the briefing, it means that it's only acknowledgement of receipt. It doesn't mean that your notice is completely examined. It is just an acknowledgement of receipt for your notice. After that, it goes through the examination, which may, for some cases, for example, for shapeband, it may take a lot of time. After the examinations are finished, depending on the results of the examinations, they will be published either in part 2 or part 3. Okay, if they are published in part 2, it means that everything is okay for your notice, and this frequency assignment will be recorded in the master register. But if you see your notices appearing in part 3 of that briefing, it means that there has been a problem with your notice, which we will explain after. You can find explanation in the briefing, but at the same time, the Bureau will send the explanations for each notice which is published in part 3 through fax, but nowadays through emails. For special sections, we have other namings for parts. We have part A, B, C, and of course for specific special section, we have also part D. So for part C and D are for terrestrial services, and A and B for space services. Okay, in the briefing database, we have master register. We have the frequencies for common use. If you remember in the previous session, we said that these frequencies are not notified. It's the BR who records these frequencies in the master register. And of course, allotments in the plans in appendices 25, 6, and 26 and 27 of the radio regulations. So this MIF contains, we are saying that contains all frequencies used worldwide, but there is an important note here. All frequencies that the Bureau has received, because sometimes you may ask questions, why I don't find this frequency, that frequency in the MIF. That's a valid question, and the reply is that the administrations can see whatever is received by the Bureau. So if you don't see a frequency assignment, probably that administration has not notified that assignments to the Bureau. So we only treat the information received from the administrations. We don't search frequencies here and there on the internet and we record them. We just focus on the notifications provided by the administrations. And the process of maintaining the MIF is an ongoing, non-stop process. Every day, even during the weekends, the master register is under the update process. So the data is processed, the data is validated, the notices are examined, the notices are then published in different parts of the MIF or the plans. And every 2 weeks, you as administrations receive the final results in the form of briefing, DVD or electronic ISO image format. Okay. In addition to the MIF, you have access to the plans, as was explained by Evgeny and Carlis in the previous session. You can access to the content of all those plans. Okay, how to access and how to consult the briefing database? Definitely we need tools. And in the DVD, in each briefing that you receive, you can find these tools. First one is called TerraQ. So TerraQ, this Q stands for query. So you can, with this tool, you can open the database, you can search for a frequency in a certain area, for a specific country, in a specific frequency band, for a specific service type. And yeah, this is for consulting the whole database, master register and plans. Additionally, you can find this tool, which is called Terra Notices. This tool is used for creation and validation of electronic notices for terrestrial services. We will see in detail on Friday. We have two other tools which are used only by specific users. You don't need them on a daily basis. So Briefing DB Manager, if you want to choose between the different Briefings, and Briefing Format Converter. You know, a few years ago, we switched the database format of the Briefing from Microsoft Access to SQLite. And there were, at that time, there were some users who had some owned tools, being able to only work with MDB files. So this tool is only addressed to them. So in case if they're not able to access the SQLite format. And starting from January 2018, we also stopped the Terra NV tool, which was used for creating notices. Okay, these fragments you have already seen, so these are for broadcasting. All these plans exist in the database. And this symbol, whenever you see NTFDRR, it means master register. For fixed and mobile, also, we have these plans. And this part, NTFDRR, is master register. In addition to those table or database and software tools, we have also some PDF documents in the Briefing. One of them, which is very important when you want to create notices, is called Preface to the Briefing. So this is this PDF file contains some hundreds of pages of information, like administration codes, classes of stations, address codes and operating agencies. The codes for each country are listed there. Nature of service, polarization, finding information, and all those things. So you can have access to an online latest version here through this link. Or if you want a copy of it, it's in the Briefing DVD. There is also this README file, which is normally a one page, depending on the content. Normally it has one page summarizing the content of this Briefing, the part which is added or removed. So you can see how many notices are published in part 1, 2, or 3, and which are the special sections in this typical Briefing. Additionally, if there is an important message to be delivered to you as administrations, you can find it there. Okay, this is how a Briefing DVD looks like. So this is the last version published, 29/24. And this is the web page of the terrestrial Briefing, that you can have access to all parts of the Briefing, parts 1, 2, 3, and the special sections if there are any, and also a sample of, you know, MDB file containing only the newly added parts, and of course the README PDF. Also, you can find here the link to the MIFR, which was questioned in the previous session. You can find it here. And of course, all other information. One important thing that was mentioned by Nikolai, I want to reiterate it here again, is that starting from 31st March 2020, we have been forced to stop sending DVDs to administrations. And starting from that date, a digital copy of the DVD in the ISO format is posted on this page. This address is only for terrestrial Briefing. We have, of course, informed your administrations through this circular letter at this date. So please make sure you have access, you have the username available, user account available for accessing these ISO files. Because as mentioned by Evgeny, time is critical. And if you don't react in a certain date, in a certain, if you don't follow those deadlines, you may lose some rights. So please make sure you have access to download the ISO files. If not, the contacts are introduced in this circular letter. Either you communicate to BR Mail or ITU Mail to ask for a username, and we will assist you. Okay, thank you very much. I'm finished.
Thank you very much, Salman. Let me see, or let me ask Nikolai if maybe we should try to take any questions at this point, or go on.
Yeah, I think there is at least one question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want me to take that, Nikolai, the last one?
Yeah, it would be good, Saman, if you are ready.
Yes, it's the last question asking what submissions need to be done if there are notices that were done in the past and is no longer active or existing. Yes, it's those notices we have a lot. I mean, those assignments we have a lot. So that is the responsibility of the notifying administration to send us suppression notices, because we have notices for addition, for modification of existing notices, for suppression of an existing assignment, and for withdrawal of a notice under process. So for those assignments which are very old and they are not anymore operational, we invite administrations to send suppression notices for those. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very good to know. And someone is asking a technical question. Sabagi is asking is it possible to import your MDB file into already installed?
Yes. Don't worry. We are going to present how to do it during our Friday session. Yes, it is possible.
All right. Thank you.
Nigel, and there is one more question. It relates to broadcasting. I think Evgeny can take a little bit time and reply either later or in written form.
Is he there? Evgeny, it's they're asking what are the provisions?
Yeah, and here.
Yes. Can you see the question? What provisions are there for active broadcasting over 5 years where no allotment or assignment was submitted? And what needs to be done in regards to those that should be notified?
Let me check. Okay, there are provisions there for active broadcast over 5 years where no allotment. The idea is as follows. As I said, in this case, there are no frequency plans for these so-called non-planned bands. So if there are no any submissions, it's up to administrations, maybe at the next WRC, to revise this band or to do something with stable frequency allocations. But you see, it's up to administrations to decide. And this issue, to be considered at the WRC, it should be included in the agenda. So it should be really some request from some administrations. We want to revise this band because of this, and this. There should be some background. For example, as we have here for WRC 23, the WRC 23 on the agenda item 2.5 is going to revise the usage of the frequency band 470 up to 960. So you see something similar should be done for these bands. If they say, okay, no one is using them, why not? But it's also not simple saying, okay, I want to revise. The idea is it should be a purpose. It should be some background. For example, okay, for these 470, 960, it's clear that many countries want to extend the IMT we want to have more access for mobile services in this band. If we're talking about HF bands or broadcasting bands in for example, up to 100 kilohertz or 1000 kilohertz, I don't see things. So personally, I don't see any movement in technology in this band. So you see, it should be driven really by the technology. Thank you.
I think we will take this question because now Evgeny answered to the previous question, but we have another question and we just take it for thinking until the end of this session.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, which one? Because, yeah.
I think it might be someone. How can we change the unfavorable findings to favorable?
Good.
The MIFR.
Good. Yeah. It's also, maybe I will reply. First of all, if you receive unfavorable finding, that means that for non-planned bands, you submitted a frequency assignment which does not fit in the frequency band allocated. So that means, for example, you submitted a frequency X with large bandwidth, and this part of the emission falls in the band which is not allocated to the service. In this case, you need to revise your notice and say, okay, I put a wrong value for bandwidth. Now it's fine. This is first point. If it's subject to any plan, you need to go and to see what is recorded in your plan. And does it correspond to what is recorded to the plan? If it's, for example, exceeds parameters which are recorded in the plan, for sure you need to go first to modify the plan to record in the plan these exceeded parameters, and then you can go to the master register to get favorable finding. You see, this is, I hope this clarifies the issue.
All right, I think we will leave that there. We will come back to further questions if they arise thereafter. We can move forward now and I guess reintroduce Carlos Bogans to talk about trends in broadband radio technologies. All yours, Carlos.
Thank you, Nigel. Good morning once again. Do you see my slide, first slide?
Yeah. Yes,
okay, very
yes,
good.
yes.
Excellent, excellent. So this presentation is on broadband radio technologies. So I go straight to the substance. So broadband can be provided over different platforms, as for example, by digital subscriber lines, cable modem, fiber, wireless. This graph shows clearly the advantage of the wireless communication over the wireline communication. So as you can see, the number of active mobile broadband subscriptions shown in green color continues to grow strongly. Mobile cellular subscriptions shown in yellow color have also continued to grow, while fixed telephone subscriptions shown in light blue color continue to decline steadily. So this presentation will be mainly about mobile broadband shown in light green color. So this slide shows a brief summary of wireless communication evolution. As for example, the first generation was an analog system for voice service without data services. Then second generation was digital systems. This generation mainly was used for voice communication, also offer additional services such as SMS and email. Third generation services combine high-speed mobile access with internet protocol, IP-based services. And fourth generation provided users with much higher data rates compared to previous generations. Applications such as enhanced mobile broadband, multimedia messaging, video chat, and so on. And fifth generation, in addition to the enhanced mobile broadband, includes two more elements, ultra reliable, low latency, massive machine type communications. The main characteristics as data rates, connection density, latency are significantly improved. So in fact, all of 3G and 4G mobile broadband systems are based on the ITU standards for IMT. You may note that ITU develops IMT high-level standards, such as vision, performance, requirements, specifications. The detailed standards used for manufacturing equipment are developed by other standardization organizations such as 3GPP, IEEE, etc. ITU established the specifications for IMT in 1999, and the first 3G deployments commenced at around the year 2000. Usually it takes around 10 years for generation to operate, and the next generation comes to the market. So in 2012, ITU defined the next generation of wireless cellular technology, IMT Advanced, and it is now progressively deployed worldwide. The next step is IMT 2020 or 5G, and detailed specifications of terrestrial radio interface will be finalized in November this year. Up to now, there are 3 standards, as it was said already: IMT 2000, IMT Advanced, and IMT 2020. Detailed specification of IMT 2000 is in recommendation M series 1457, and it is a family of 6 standards listed in yellow box. IMT 2000 corresponds to 3G generation and its upgrades, such as 3.5, 3.8, and so on. IMT Advanced is 4G standard. It has only 2 technologies, LTE Advanced and Wyman Advanced. If we speak about mobile broadband on phones, LTE is the only standard. This is a big step ahead, meaning 1 technology. And so IMT 2020 is under development. So this graph shows the history of spectrum identification for IMT. As we can see, every second conference was allocating new frequencies for IMT. The total amount has been increased from 230 megahertz in 1992 to 19 gigahertz of bandwidth spectrum in 2019. 5G, in addition to the enhanced mobile broadband, includes 2 more elements. As it was said already, ultra reliable, low latency, and massive machine type communications. So recommendation M series 2083 identifies 3 main categories of applications. These categories, they depend on specific user requirements, and you may see them at the corners of this triangle. These are enhanced mobile broadband. It aims at very high data rates, for example, for 3D video or augmented reality. So massive machine type communications. This category requires huge connection density and energy efficiency. These applications will be used, for example, for smart cities or homes, power grids, agriculture. And number 3 is ultra reliable and low latency communication. Such applications will require high mobility, low latency. For example, autonomous cars or remotely controlled drones. It can be seen 5G has verticals in industry sectors where 5G can be used. So 5G will integrate IoT and different vertical activities like e-health, transportation, industry, automation. it will have a massive number of connections, number of antennas, number of access points, and unit area. So this picture shows the enhanced capabilities of IMT 2020 compared to IMT Advanced. For comparison purposes, parameters of IMT Advanced are given in light green color. Differently from the previous generations, 5G performance indicators are also focused on efficiency, such as latency, 1 millisecond, connection density, 1 million devices per square kilometer, and energy efficiency. The key performance KPIs for 5G are much better, as for example, data rate, 20 gigabits per second. For 4G, it was only 1 gigabit per second in stationary environment. The main characteristics as data rates, connection density, latency are significantly improved. So as part of allocation and identification of frequency band, very important activity of ITUR is developing the harmonized channel and arrangements. It allows to reduce the number of different frequency bands used in chipsets of mobile devices. This slide summarizes footnotes of the radio regulations that identify different frequency bands for IMT. The rows highlighted in orange shows the 5 frequency bands identified by WRC 19 for IMT between 24 and 71 gigahertz. So as it was said already, totally 17 gigahertz bandwidth spectrum was identified, 14 worldwide in bands 24, 37, 66 gigahertz, and 2.5 gigahertz on regional or country basis in 45 and 47 gigahertz bands. So how IMT 2020 standardization process looks like. Detailed studies of IMT 2020 are conducted in ITUR study groups, mainly working party 5D. Work is done in several steps. To date, ITU developed IMT Vision, IMT 2020 Vision, this is recommendation M-Series 2083, and technical requirements for its systems, it is report M-Series 2410. In July 2020, in this year, 5D finalized evaluation of radio interface technologies for IMT 2020. 3 technologies are included and 2 for further enhancements. And in October in this year, 5D will review evaluation report and finalize drafting of new recommendation on detailed specification. What is important that during the entire period from 2017 to 2020, operators, manufacturers, scientists have been doing technical and market trials of 5G technologies. The results of these trials contribute to the development of detailed specifications for IMT 2020. So in addition to IMT, the broadband can be provided by other platforms. For example, wireless access systems, including radio local area networks. These systems are operating in the 2.4 gigahertz band and 5 gigahertz bands. So these are island, specifically Wi-Fi devices, and now carry approximately half of all global internet protocol IP traffic. There are also systems at higher frequency bands in 60 gigahertz band that are multiple gigabit wireless systems that are widely used for fixed, semi-fixed, transportable, and portable computer equipment for different broadband applications. What is important that Wi-Fi is very much used for offloading of mobile traffic, and 5G industries are also preparing for LAN type services within IMT 2020. Another platform which is quite popular now, is HAPS, that are objects located at 20-26 kilometer height on drones with service area about 50 kilometers. HAPS can provide broadband in remote and underserved areas. Direct links, they provide direct links to users, or they are used also, they can be used also as IMT backhaul. So they can also be rapidly deployed for disaster recovery communications. Several bands, as for example, at 6.5 gigahertz, 27 gigahertz, 47 gigahertz, were identified for HAPS before conference 2019. But they had geographical limitations and too narrow for high-speed broadband. So the spectrum was not enough. And in this table, as you can see, so the bands that are highlighted in yellow, there are 5 bands which were identified by WRC-19. And these bands are globally or regionally harmonized, and so with total of 5 additional gigahertz of spectrum of bandwidth, which is sufficient for further developments of HAPS. So coming back to IMT, there is a very significant progress in radio access technologies. And I can mention, for example, carrier aggregation of discontinuous bands, including interband carrier aggregations that could allow wider bandwidth to be used, advanced waveforms and modulation and coding schemes, and advanced transceiver designs are being investigated as solutions having potential to improve the spectral efficiency in future IMT systems. Also, advanced antenna technologies such as massive MIMO active antennas that enable to achieve better spectrum efficiency, and non-orthogonal multiple access schemes, on the other hand, have an essential capability to provide increased user capacity through output performance by allocating the same radio resources to multiple users. Improvements are also made in the networking. For example, during the transition period from 4G to 5G, it is assumed that the systems will provide connectivity between terminals that are in the involved networks. Also, we can speak about kind of federation of FDD and TDD networks, and about future heterogeneous networks when you have one network by IMT and other wireless networks. Self-organizing cloud radio access networks, which integrate the technologies of software-defined network function, virtualization, multi-access computing. Also, artificial intelligence, it may come into play and it may improve the ability to extract knowledge from data. It will assist automatization of network management and processing information. Network slicing that enables success of 5G developments. 5G should bring the required flexibility to support many services in multi-tenant environment with different requirements through output and availability. That is why 5G network slicing is a key concept in terms of network virtualization, separation from physical network into several or multiple virtual networks to support various customer segments. For example, one physical network, which you can see in this example, provides communication for sensors, Internet of Things, business enhanced mobile broadband, and same network, physical network base station can serve for intelligent transport systems. So as concluding remarks, I would like to mention that mobile broadband is something really beneficial for economies. It brings new services and transforms societies. Recent ITU studies show that increase of 10% in penetration leads to 0.8 increase of gross domestic product of a country. Some mobile broadband provides necessary connectivity for different sectors such as smart cities, smart homes, smart works, smart factories, connected vehicles, IoTs, etc. It ensures high data rates, high mobility, high spectrum efficiency, massive connectivity, high energy efficiency, and ultra low latency. So ITU contributes to broadband developments by providing spectrum and stable regulatory environment and development of high-level standards. Last concluding point is it's a bit different from technical points, that the broadband development should be balanced in countries. 5G, which is very promising, at the same time, it should not limit or harm the can for 4G developments. 5G is expensive and it is difficult to invest in 4G networks and 5G at the same time. So some priorities should be done at the national level. So on my final slide, it summarizes some references and information that you can use for when you consult IMT 20 and other developments of broadband. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Carlos. There are a couple quick questions. One is quite simple, I think. We have IMT 2020, which is analogous to 5G, and the question was being asked. We are already hearing people talking about 6G. Is there any further standard, any further IMT standard that might be analogous to 6G, or is that still to be developed?
I mean, sorry, I mean, about 6G. So, I mean, as I already pointed out, currently ITUR is working on 5G. 6G is, so it is not yet, it hasn't came yet to ITUR sector. So, but I mean, we know 6G, but it is not yet on ITUR side.
Right, there is no specification, I agree.
Yes, I'd like to complement the answer from my colleague because we are presently chatting on it with our study group counselor. Yes, we kindly attention that 6G is you wish still something like a brainstorm. There's not yet any official regulatory or standard procedure on it. We think it's too soon. We need first to accomplish the process of standardization of 5G, waiting for the actual deployment of networks, their performance, and so on, beyond, before going ahead. Thank you, Carlos.
Okay, yeah.
We have an anonymous attendee, which is strange. Someone is also asking, what prevents HAPS from being used to provide mobile service with the right regulatory framework? In other words, then, can HAPS be used to provide mobile service as well?
Yeah, I mean, there are HAPS stations already before WRC 19, there are HAPS in 2.1 gigahertz. They can be used for within within the mobile service.
Right.
So I don't know. It's
and I'm aware that there is an agenda item for WRC 2023. HIBS, as I think, is a similar type thing, using HAPS for.
Yeah, for I mean, in the context of IMT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, to complement that, also as explaining HAPS is basically for support to fixed services. There are some footnotes from some countries allowing the use of hubs as equivalent at a base station for mobile service under very, very specific conditions. But right now it's on those specific footnotes. So please look at the footnotes of it.
So I mean, just yeah, thank you, Joachim, for complimenting yeah, my reply. As you can see, this is a footnote. I mean, it's shown in this table. It's 5.388A. So, and it is, I mean, it is identifying.
Are you there? Or you're done? You're done.
No, it is, yeah, I mean, these are the bands which are identified for, yeah.
Ah, okay, I understand.
Maybe, Nigel, also, if we complement each other, first of all, about 6G, we have working party, which is 5D, which normally deals with standardization of different generations of IMT, 3G, 4G, 5G. So they plan to start the 6G vision in the autumn meeting this year. So there are so far no activities, but there are plans to start in the ITU in 5D this autumn. Concerning the question about hubs, the question was what prevents, what regulatory provision prevent hubs from being used as mobile stations. There is one regulatory provision in radio regulations which says that hubs can be used only in the bands which are specifically identified by the radio regulations. So, and the only band is identified, currently identified is 2 GHz band, but it's very limited in the terms of countries. So not everybody can use it. That's why, as you pointed out correctly, the next conference will check all bands or several bands below 2.7 gigahertz for HIPs. So
yes.
hubs as base stations.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We do have another 2 questions, which I think we have one more presentation, but I think we could probably address these quickly. One relates to which ITU study group might be concerned with possible adverse effects of 5G technology. I think they're probably talking about radiation effects, you know, non-ionizing radiation. There was a mention of that yesterday in terms of a study group or a working party that dealt with that. Could you all clarify?
This is Nikolai Vasilyev. So there is no studies of impact of 5G technologies on health in the ITU. The limits for humans' safety is developed by World Health Organizations, and there are some other limits there. What ITU does, we only develop the methodology for measurements of this level, but we don't elaborate or develop the limits themselves.
Okay, and is that ITU work done in a particular group that deals with propagation or something of this sort?
I think it should be in the working party which deals with radio monitoring and measurement of emissions. It's so-called, not so-called, it's named working party 1C.
Okay.
Nigel, just I'd like to compliment Nikolai. As we had explained yesterday, the R2R is devoted to the use of the spectrum for radio communication purposes. We know, we are aware, we must take care about the possible impact on human safety and on the human of the electromagnetic fields. there are specific study groups within the I2T sector taking care of it. And of course, they duly coordinate with us. Then in that sense, there are some documents about, for example, for broadcasting. And in particular, I had just mentioned yesterday, a newest recommendation from the Spectrum Management Series, as I Nicolai, precisely from the monitoring, specifying how to do monitoring process, aimed to do that. So I invite again to look at the SM series, the recent public reports and recommendations related to it. But again, we work together with the I2T sector who is leading this matter.
Okay, thank you. The last question quickly is from Jose Riveros Roa. If some parts of the C-band are already allocated to IMT or will be in the near future, such as 3400, 3600 megs and so on, why not the correspondent FSS spectrum? Or why not also allocate the correspondent FSS spectrum for IMT? For example, 6.4, 6.6, 5.9, 6.0.
Well, before giving the floor to my colleagues, I call upon the attention again about being careful. The allocation is made to the services defined also within the radio regulations, and INT is not considered as a services. INT is considered as an application for mobile services. That's why all related to INT is working with the radio regulation as identification.
Right.
There's no allocation for INT yet. And administration have decided that, because remember that it's not the VR, it's the I2R, it needs the radio conference to decide so.
Right. So I suppose then maybe the question could be interpreted as, why haven't we identified those correspondent bands as well? So in other words, if you've identified the, say, uplink bands, why not also identify in the downlink bands?
This is Nikolai. I think the agenda item 1.2 of the next conference, WC23, its plans to study possible IMT identification in the bands 6,422 to 7,025, but mainly for region 1. So answer is yes, it will be under consideration, but limited to region 1, possibly because region 2 and 3 countries didn't want to open this band for IMT.
Right. All right, so I guess the answer is that it's coming. They're starting to look at it. Okay.
Yeah, it will be under studies. I mean, studies. This is under studies for the next conference.
For the next WRC.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. There are a couple others, but let me say, let's make sure we get in the last presentation, and then we'll deal with all the questions that are ending. The last presentation is on technical and regulatory evolution of radio and TV, and I believe it's Juan Castro who will be our presenter. Yes, I see Juan.
Yes, hello Nigel, this is Juan.
Yes, so please.
So let me share my screen with the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, you see it correctly?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thanks, thanks a lot. So hello, my name is Juan Castro, as Nigel introduced me, and I work in the terrestrial services department in the VR. And today I'm going to talk about the evolution of radio and TV. So the summary of the presentation, I'm going to first start talking about digital, what I call the digital revolution, mainly why we are moving to digital and what are the advantages. Then we will focus specifically on digital television, to then take a look at digital radio, and finally we will look a little bit into the future, what the future might bring in broadcasting. So let's start first to see how digital started and how it evolved until today. The first digital tests in broadcasting started in the 90s. And the first functioning platform of DTT started in UK in 1998. It was then in the 2000s when the development of digital TV started really with what is called the digital switchover. So the move from analog television to digital television. There were also some first digital radio transmissions, but as we will see, the digital radio has been some steps behind compared to digital TV for different reasons that we will see. And also in parallel, which is not directly related to broadcasting, but it has an impact. In the 2000s, it was a big development of high definition and flat screens, which made that TVs were much more available in all rooms, in all houses, and everywhere. Today, the digital switchover has taken over in many countries. So the analog has been replaced by digital TV. Many other countries are in the process of doing it. Some of them are starting, but it is now clear that in some years, the broadcasting for television will be digital everywhere. Also in radio today, some countries are starting to do the switchover from analog to digital, but as we said, is going at a slower pace compared to television. Let's see why digital? What are the advantages and why should we or are we moving to digital? If we take from the perspective of users, regulators, and the broadcasters, if we start with the users, the digital brings more programs to the users, so they have more content. So that's one advantage. The digital allows also for new reception modes. We used to have with analog television just the traditional fixed rooftop reception. And with digital, this brings the possibility of portable and mobile reception modes, which make the broadcasting more accessible everywhere. Another advantage for users of moving to digital is that they can get a better quality of the image and sound. And also, they can get new types of services, including some interactivity. Typical example is electronic program guides that we can see on our TVs to see what are the next programs going to show. And we will see some applications later on that are allowed by digital broadcasting. Also, regulators, they get some advantages. On the first thing, even if it's listed second on the slide, for me would be the efficiency of a spectrum. By moving to digital, we can use one traditional frequency or channel that was used for one TV program, can be used for several TV programs. So we make a better use of the spectrum. And this efficiency in the use of a spectrum will allow also regulators to free part of the band used for broadcasting for other usage. The typical case is UHF, which is being now used for mobile in a different number of countries. Same as for users, this allows for having more programs or transmitting the programs with a better definition. And finally, one other important reason for regulators is that the broadcasting needs to evolve to offer new functionalities and be this way competitive compared to other platforms. Finally, we have operators and the content providers, which also get some advantages from digital. The first one would be the costs associated to, first, to the power, because we need, when we use digital broadcasting, we need less energy for the transmitting sites. And also we can cover a similar geographical area using less transmitters. So there is an economy in the network and in operating the network as well. Also, they can offer new services. This has a double advantage. On one side, it attracts users or helps keep users with watching the content provided by them, and allows also in some cases even services that are being paid for by users. So it brings also some revenue, additional revenue to the broadcasters. So now that we saw why the digital became a very important part of the broadcasting for all these advantages for the different sides of it, let's focus on digital television first. In digital television, there is no worldwide standard used by everyone, but instead there were a number of standards that were developed and adopted in different countries. So in this presentation, we can see listed the 545. There is DVB-T, which has a second generation version, which is DVB-T2. And then another 3 standards, which are used in different countries. We can see in this world map, which is taken from our website, with the adopted DTT standards in the different part of the world. So if you want to see really the details with the specific countries, you can go to the URL that you see here on the bottom of the page, and you can see the details of the countries who have informed ITU on the systems they have adopted. Similarly, as we said, the digital broadcast, digital TV allows also for new transmission modes, including mobile and handheld. And these also, there are different standards that are being used for this purpose. Some of them are subsets of the standards for digital TV on fixed reception mode. Let's now move. We have seen in previous presentation how in specific regions or groups of countries, they can reach specific agreements or to detail how they want to use specific services in certain frequency bands and in certain regional areas. For digital TV, there are no specific regional plans in the Americas region, but there is a regional agreement, which my colleague Evgeny has described in more detail in his presentation. So here I just put a summary. The multilateral agreement for Central America and the Caribbean was developed through a multilateral coordination exercise through 4 meetings that took place in years 2017 and 2018. There were 30 administrations participating, and it dealt with both VHF and UHF bands. And an interesting part of this coordination is that specifically in this part of the world, the Central America and the Caribbean, different countries have different standards for digital television. So we had to deal with actually all the DTT standards that are existing. At the end of the process, there was an outcome with a final list of frequency. It's a reference list, it's not a final list, that the participating administrations committed to respect, so that all of them, even if they have different speeds in the digital switchover, they will respect the frequencies that are reserved for different countries, especially for neighboring countries, not to interfere the others. So apart from this multilateral agreement, as we said, there are no specific regional plans for digital television in Americas. So basically the notification to the ITU to be included in the master register would fall under Article 5 of the Radio Regulations and would follow the process that was described previously by my colleagues. Let's now see, we said that the moving to digital was allowing also for new kinds of services and new kind of technology approaches. So let's see now some of those. I'll start with hybrid TV or the integrated broadcast broadband systems. So these are basically a combination of broadcasting and broadband. And several standards have been developed. And the typical case scenario for hybrid TV would be a TV set which receives broadband programs as in a classical way, but is also connected to the internet. And there is this combination allows to receive more interactive services or personalized services. An example could be if a user has been registered with interest in music, for example, he could be notified through the TV while he's watching a program that in another channel there's going to be a music program, for example. And all kinds of services can be developed using the benefits of the two technologies. Another example would be the use of social media simultaneously from the TV set at the same time as a program which is broadcasted is taking place. For more details on hybrid TV, there are a couple of recommendations in ITUR which are mentioned in this slide. For those who are interested, they can consult these recommendations. Let's see also another advantage of digital. We saw that because digital takes less spectrum, of course we can use the spectrum to have better definition television when using better resolution. That would be the case of ultra high definition television. But because we have a digital signal, this signal can be treated and using the same amount of spectrum and without increasing the quality in terms of pixels, we can improve the subjective feeling of the quality. So for the user, the image would have a better quality because we can use the physical characteristics of the human beings. And this will present an image that gives the information that the user will perceive. This is an example, this is the case of the high dynamic range, which is an example of use of digital to improve the image without really improving the physical quality. Again, there is also a recommendation from the VT series 2020 that can be consulted for more details on this, on the better viewer experience. Another, looking more into the future, but it's some tests have already been done, is what is called the advanced immersive audiovisual systems. This includes the virtual reality and augmented reality. The goal is to provide the user with an immersive experience so that the user feels part of the scene and the images that he's watching on the screen. So normally this, of course, is also a mix. It can be transmitted using broadcasting, but it requires also a pre-treatment. The images have to be recorded using several cameras and so on. So it's a combination of technologies, and the user will have to wear a specific device, like you see the image on the screen. And for example, a user wearing this device could be watching a movie and move around as he was inside the scene, inside the house, or if it's outside, inside the landscape. There are also some work on ITU in these systems, and the report and a recommendation that describe the technical approaches can be consulted and are indicated here on this slide. And last but not least, the digital move also facilitates the development of accessibility features. These are features that, together with the broadcasting program, can help people with hearing disabilities, people with sight impairment, or people with aging audience in general, or any person with some disability. The typical case is the use of sign language, for example, which traditionally would require the person to be doing the signing next to the program. When we're working with digital, new approaches can be taken. We can use first closed signing or open signing, which means that in open signing, the signed person will be visible permanently. But in closed signing, the user decides, show me the sign language or not. Also, we can make use of avatars, or even we can use an automatic system that translates speech into the sign language avatar. Another options for improving accessibility features would be things like the automatic translation, for example, or automatic generation of captions on the screen. Again, there are a couple of reports which are interesting on this subject, and they are listed at the bottom of the slide. And at the end, this is the end of the TV section, so I've included a couple of slides because there is a lot of information on this subject, with handbooks and reports that are published in ITUR, as well as the key recommendations on DTT. So this can serve you as a reference for further reading. Let's move now to digital radio. As we said, digital radio, digital sound broadcasting has been a little bit behind compared to TV for different reasons. One of the reasons is that the spectrum used by sound is much less than in TV. So the advantages of efficient use of spectrum, of course, is less because we free less spectrum. There are other reasons which are applicable in specific countries or regions. For example, the fact that the users are very used to having a specific FM frequency number, and the fact of moving to digital and maybe changing the frequency, which sometimes in TV is less important. For commercial reasons, in FM is very important. So there were different reasons why radio has been a little bit behind, but is now starting. I mean, it has started already. And we can say also that there are advantages of using digital sound. Like we said, the advantages of digital TV. And these advantages, apart from the efficient use of spectrum, is like we can get an improved quality of the signal, just like in TV. We can have also more content with the same amount of channels. Again, the power of the transmitters can be reduced. And in digital sound, it's also important that additional information can be added to the signal, such as small images, for example, or some data that goes together with the sound. Again, there are a number of digital sound standards. There is no unique worldwide standard, and they are adopted depending on regional areas. Different countries are giving preference to one system or another, but also depending on the frequency bands that they are using. it was presented before in the regional plans by my colleague Evgeny, that in the Americas we have 2 regional plans. We said there is no regional plan for TB, but there are 2 regional plans that deal with sound. This is Rio de Janeiro 81 and Rio de Janeiro 88. So when we talk, of course, when these plans were developed, there was no digital sound. But it was analyzed whether we countries can inform ITU of frequencies that are going to be used for digital audio and which are concerned by these plans. So in the case of Rio de Janeiro 81, which deals with the frequency band 535 to 1605 kilohertz, there is no possibility of introducing digital modulation because of the way the plan is written. So as Evgeny mentioned to a previous question, to change this plan, a new regional conference will have to take place. But in the case of the band 1065 to 1705, which is falls under the regional agreement Rio de Janeiro 88, there is a possibility to introduce digital modulation subject to the completion of a number of studies that are being taking place in the ITU study groups. Finally, we have also the high frequency broadcasting, which is ruled by Article 12 of the radio regulations. There is no regional plan, but there is a specific article in the radio regulations that rules the use of HFVC worldwide. And under HFVC, there could be a notification of digital sound also, or if provided they don't increase the level of interference. And there is a resolution that was revised in the WRC 15, which talks about the introduction of digital modulation in the band in the high frequency band for broadcasting. Again, there is a good number of documents that deal with digital sound broadcasting in ITU. So in this slide, you have a list of the most critical ones that you can consult. And finally, I will just very briefly talk about the artificial intelligence and broadcasting. Artificial intelligence is a very hot topic these days. Just to introduce, artificial intelligence refers to the capacity of computers, machines, and devices to process and treat information in a similar way to humans. This means there are learning processes, decision-making, and problem resolution that the machine can do with the information. In broadcasting, the use of artificial intelligence falls more in the program production and in managing the network for the broadcasting. Examples in the program production, we already mentioned, there can be systems that produce automatic translation. There could be also object tracking. So a camera could track a specific scene following artificial intelligence system. And also the artificial intelligence can be used for things that before it was humans, like evaluating the subjective quality, which is very important because it allows not to transmit information that a human being will not be able to process. So this that before was being done by asking thousands of users to watch something and say what they were seeing. This can be done now using artificial intelligence. Also, it can be used for the network management, including warning of emergencies when a number of things happen in the network. And also the artificial intelligence is starting to be used for system monitoring and diagnosis. There is also a report from in the BT series on artificial intelligence systems for program production and exchange. And you can consult on this issue. And with this, I finish my presentation. I hope it was interesting, and I'm available if you have any questions, and I thank you for listening.
Much, Juan. It was indeed very interesting and very informative as well. I think for those of us who are not so versed with what's happening with both TV and radio, it gives quite a good overview, and also where we can find additional information. And yes, there are a couple of specific questions. One from Jamaica, Malango Lawson, he's asking, he noticed that ATSC 3.0 is not listed in your slide 7. What is the current state of that technology, and are there planning standards developed by the ITU for ATSC 3.0?
Thank you for the question. So I am, to be honest, I'm not sure if ITSC 3.0 has been yet been included in a specific IT recommendation. I believe maybe it's in the process in the study groups. Maybe my colleagues can complement this, Nikolai or Ilham. Or we can, otherwise we can complete the reply later.
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon.
Yes,
I was, I think, faster than Juan because I answered to the question in the QA section. And so just to mention that, in fact, the ATSC was included in most of the ITOR recommendations and reports under the work of mostly Working Party 6A. And that was done, let's say, rather late compared to DVB-T and DVB-T2 and also the Chinese standards. But I think it was, they did hard work between 2016 and 2018 to have ATSC3 included in almost all the I2R recommendations and reports that mention the other standards, including the interference criteria and the standards, qualities, etc. And I think that they were a little bit late in in updating this documentation because they wanted to wait until the ATSC3 was mature enough. So in the section Q&A, let me try to go back. I put the whole list, and it's certainly not exhaustive. I don't know if you can see the answer.
I'm looking in the
answered. Okay, let me see answered.
Yeah, look at the answer.
So yeah, in the answer I included
right. You have to show
the
it.
whole list. Yeah, I see it now. Yeah, so I included the whole list of the recommendations and the reports, and also I would like to clarify that these reports and recommendations, they are free. So the interested people are invited to go in and to look. And of course, if they have any specific questions in Juan's presentation, there is an email so they can send us for any specific question. Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Juan, there is.
I saw another question which deals in relates to the map that I showed.
Yes, the map.
Of the DTT standards. The question is, what is the status? What does it mean by status of adoption? So yeah, it's important to know that in ITUR we collect the information from administrations as they send it to us, and this is reflected on this web page, which contains the evolution in the adoption and the switch over in the different countries of the world. But the information could be different if some countries have delays in informing us on their standard. So basically all that we see there is what has been officially notified to us, but we don't take information from the internet or from other sources that we could find, but we wait for administrations to notify to us. So the status indicated in this map and on this website is always from the information that has been provided to us.
And it should mean that it is in service in those countries.
It means that a country might say, for example, it has
selected it.
I must indicate switchover is not finished, and maybe it is finished, or we don't have the date of the switchover because it has not been notified to us.
Right.
So
Or
we
maybe
encourage, this opportunity also to ask for members to submit to us what information they have on their situation regarding digital switchover, so we update it on the official website.
All right, well, certainly they would have selected those standards as their national standard. And Lindell from Jamaica is also asking if ITU is satisfied that all these standards can coexist.
Well, in ITU, our role, I mean, we are satisfied if member states are satisfied. And of course, everybody, I think that one of our goals is to have as unified standards and as unified use of a spectrum as possible. This, for different reasons, is not always possible. So, but in the current situation, I think things are working fine. Now the digital TV is quite a mature system. And as I mentioned, specifically the case of Central America with countries using all the 5 systems, of course, this complicates things. It makes that we, for coordination purposes, we have to work on some of the technical side of things to evaluate interferences from systems to other systems that were not necessarily available in current VR recommendations. So, but at the end of the day, the important thing is that all countries coordinate and to make sure that they don't interfere the neighbors. And so I think with the contribution of everyone, even if we have 5 standards, the service can be satisfactory. Yes.
Yeah. And Fernando is also saying that your map needs updating because Fernando from Uruguay, he's saying that Uruguay and Paraguay have also adopted the ISDB-T.
Yeah, so as I said, I encourage them if they have, if they're in touch with those in charge of notifying to the ITU, to let us know officially. Officially can be through an email. It doesn't have to be more than that, but to ITU, the standard they're using, what is the exact situation in their move from analog to digital.
Okay. All right. The only other question I have open is one that is not specifically for you, Juan. It's a kind of a general question to all the ITU people who might be listening. And Julian is wondering whether there is any study group looking at contact tracing applications, as this seems to be a hot topic right now, and whether anyone knows whether any ITU standard in this respect is being considered.
I think, to my knowledge at least, there is no such activity in the study group of radio communication sector.
Mm-hmm.
To learn if other sectors launch this activity, we need to ask them. So I think I will ask some colleagues and tomorrow we will reply, but for no activity in ITU are study groups.
All right, thank you. All right, that actually exhausts our questions and pretty much our time for today. I want to thank everyone again for attending. We've had over 200 persons online. I think the presentations have been quite informative. We look forward to hearing about space services tomorrow. Remember all that the presentations are being posted on the ITU website, so they can be found there. And I think some of the presentations today with references would be useful for everyone. So let me just say on behalf of CTU and I'll also say on behalf of ITU, thanks for your attention today. And just a second, I'm just seeing a slight note here. Oh, okay. I'm back, yes. On behalf of the CTU and the ITU, I think just saying thank you for your attention today. Remember, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And we'll be looking at the space services aspects of the BR. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much. Bye now.